welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. Today I am MegaCon Daniel, because Papa Kelli and I were not able to record a full regular episode as we normally do every week, so we did save this Greg Capullo MegaCon panel that I was able to record. I spent hours cleaning it up and making the audio levels listenable, essentially. So just keep that in mind that this was taking place in a panel with a lot of people around, and I went through the entire thing and leveled out the best that I could, enough so that you can hear what Greg Capullo had to say, and there is a ton here that is amazing. Greg Capullo, in case you are not familiar with him, he is a rock star artist right now. You may know him in the past from Spawn, Haunt, or the New 52 Batman run, which is iconic with the Court of Owls, Death of the Family, and right now, Last Night on Earth from DC Black Label is the final Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo Batman comic book, or at least they say. So he is a huge artist, and we were really happy to be able to record this and share it with all of you, especially those of you that weren't able to go to MegaCon, or those of you who do love not only Greg Capullo's work, but are enjoying what's happening with Batman, with DC, or if you're curious about how some of these projects do come about when they get adapted into a Netflix show, as you will hear with Reborn. So sit back and enjoy today's episode, the Spotlight panel on Greg Capullo. We will see you next week for your regularly scheduled podcast.
You guys already know what I do when I do comic books. How long have you been with me? Who's been here since X-Force? Anybody since X-Force? All right, that's awesome. This is the stretch. Quasar? Ah, a couple Quasars. Spawn? Spawn. And how many stuck around and are with me for Batman? Anybody pick up Reborn?
Yep.
Okay, for those who picked up Reborn, have you heard about, obviously it's been sold to Netflix at this point, that Sandra Bullock's going to produce it? Anybody, did you guys know that? Sandra Bullock's going to produce it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Sandra Bullock is contemplating starring it, and I would assume as the lead role Bonnie. So, it's very, very nice. I wish I was getting more money, but they bought me out, so that's it, so that's it. But they do want me to do a sequel at some point, draw another Reborn book, so that's going to be great, and I hope I can do it because I don't want anybody else to draw that thing that I created. So, and they said they'll pay me a lot of money, so it's another reason I don't want anybody else to draw it. I want to be the guy. So, anyway. How many, have you met Scott Snyder before down here, right? Yeah. So we know that he's got a baby. Do you guys know? That's why he's not here. Yeah, he's got a new, see, some people don't know. He's got a newborn baby. Baby Scotty? Baby Scotty, right? And he's already got the eyebrow, and a little shot of whiskey in the other hand, and it's like, free comic book day. So that's why he's not here. He's not going to be doing any shows until San Diego. So I miss my brother, but I brought his eyebrow so that we all feel that he's here in the room with us. So anyway, I figured I'd just talk a little bit about what I'm working on right now, and then you guys can ask me whatever you want, and you can just go like that, because why talk about stuff you don't care about? So I'm working on Scott and I are working on our last Batman story together, and how we see this is. We see our beginning, obviously, as Court of Owls, and we see this as the final tale of that Batman that we started in Court of Owls. So what that means is like, that's not saying that Scott on his own, or me on my own, or us together will never do another Batman story together, that we'll never draw the character or write the character again. We're just going, this is the end of that Batman. This is bookends. When you get it home, you get the Court of Owls, you got Last Night on Earth, if they call it Last Night on Earth, I don't know, but that'll be all encapsulated, beginning to end. So that's what we're doing now, and from there, Scott and I have so many plans that we've been talking about that I hope I live long enough to fulfill them all, because it's a lot of cool stuff. And some of it takes place with DC. DC has something that they want Scott and I to do, which will be, and it's just not bullshit hyperbole, because you know me by now probably, that I'm not a BSer. I'm not a carnival barker, but it'll be the biggest thing we've done to date so far. And to me, the biggest thing we did to date prior has been metal. That was pretty. You guys grab metal? Every script I got from Scott is crazier and crazier. I'm going, wow, this is so much fun. Because he sold it to me, pitched it to me. I was over his house, our wives together and stuff. And he goes, and there'll be a Joker Dragon. And I'm going, Joker Dragon, sign me up. Battle Axe. I'm going, yes. So every script just got more and more fun. I'm glad you guys grabbed it and enjoyed it. So anyway, we're working on it last night. It's 3 issues. Each one's 48 pages. I'm about to start the last one. And Scott is almost a Jedi. And I told him, you have Jedi potential. As far as writing comics, and since the beginning, I've kind of coached him on things that he needs to do better on, and he's hit all those marks. And his last final mark is to go, when they tell me I have 48 pages, I can't make it 58 pages. This is the last link of that chain. And so 48 pages, well, already he's going, dude, I really think it should be a little bit longer, and I think the editors are forcing it to 58. And if you think it should be longer, would you totally make it longer? And I'm going, he's going, how many pages are you talking, Scott? Well, if it could be 58. And I'm going, it's a lot of extra pages. And I don't know if they'll give me the time. Oh, they'll give you time. It doesn't matter when it comes out. I'm going, wait a minute, are you not the co-publisher? You know it's okay to come out whenever you want? So Scott's going, I just want it to be our best, and I don't want to be arrested. They can move it as long as it comes out this year. And I'm like, we're not the boss, Scott. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, even the page count might be more than the 48 pages that has been advertised. So we're doing that. And at the same time, I'm working on a secret project, which I can't tell you what it is right now, even though I'm dying to. That I'm working on. You won't tell. I know this guy's filming. So it's all out of bag now. Anyway, it'll be announced soon publicly, and then I think a lot of you will be excited to hear about it. But that's most I'm going to say about that. So there's your little comic tease. See, I'm a CT. And so anyway, Scott and I have a lot of ideas, and we have a lot of creator-owned ideas that we want to do. And I want to finish my arc of the Creech. Anybody in here pick up the Creech? We have a couple. That's an old one, right? So anyway, I always had the 3rd arc of the Creech planned, but I took over Batman just when I was writing it. So Scott and I have talked about it, and Scott said, well, I'll do it with you. And I go, great. I know the outline. I know exactly where I want to go with it. And to have Scott's writing chops behind me on that, it'll just make it all the better. And so, and then he brought to me a couple ideas that he had, and so I have a couple ideas that I initially just thought of for like Netflix or Hollywood or whatever, and we go, well, we'll do like a one-shot comic and try and get it sold, and yeah. So we have all these ideas, and then he also has Marvel ideas. He has, I don't know if you've heard him talk about it, but he's got an idea for the Hulk called Hulk Smash Everything. I'm in. And he's got another team up, which is Captain America with Wolverine and Ghost Rider. I'm in. So we've got all these ideas, and that's one of the reasons why we want to wrap up on Batman, is because we've been doing it now since 2011, right? That's a long time, and for a couple of reasons. One is, as creators, your shelf life, doesn't go on and on forever, and the longer you stay in one spot, that window to doing all the other cool stuff that you can imagine that we would like to do gets narrower and narrower, and you go, got to do it, it's now or never kind of thing. Plus, too, the last thing I want to hear is the fans, you guys go, Christ, I wish I could get some new blood on that book. Snyder, so right now you still kind of like us a little bit. So you look really while they still are cheering instead of going, get out. So anyway, that's what's happening. Working on last night, secret project, a lot of other plans in the work with Scott and I. Scott will not let me go until I'm actually dead. He's told me that. Yeah. I don't know why you guys love us so much together, but you guys do, and I'm grateful. He's got, of course, because Scott's a writer, he has to conjure up theories why. And I think it's because they genuinely see a friendship. I don't know what it is, Scott. I'm just happy that it is. So as long as you like our show, man, we'll keep putting it on. So thank you for being in our corner all the time. Thank you. It It helps us even at the company when we have arguments about what we think we should be able to do, and they don't want us to do it. And we because you are in a corner, it gives us more clout. It helps us to push back a little bit against corporation power. And so thank you for always being in our corner. It helps us behind the scenes when you don't even realize what you're doing for us, so thank you. Also, you help us to earn more money, so we all need that. So I figure we can, I don't have anybody up here with me. I'll open it up to questions, and anything you want to ask, as long as it's nothing that they want me to keep quiet about, I'll talk about it. Yeah, go ahead.
You just said that sometimes the fact that things support your student partnership help give you more sway to push back against things. What's one thing that you'd like successfully want to be able to say, well, fans love it when we do things, so just let us do our thing?
Well, the one I love to throw in their face was issue 5. Now, issue 5 of Court of Owls, that's where the book turns around all the way around. Oh, see? And I rub this in their face all the time, because the fans love it. It's the single most commented on issue that we've done together. And so how it went was, right, so I get the script, and what made me think to turn the book all the way around is because the story opens on a very normal thing, and then we go crazy with Batman. He's tripping, he's drinking tainted water, and he's in the labyrinth, and it gets crazy. Now, if the story ended with him in the labyrinth like that, it would have never occurred to me to do the book turn. But at the end, it ends with Damien up on the rooftop with Bullock and Gore, whatever, and I go, so now we're back out of the labyrinth in this normal spot. So I go to myself, I said, well, if I start to disorient the reader, he'll be living this, they'll be living this like Batman's living it, and then we're out of it by the end of the book. We're on the rooftop, and that's when the book ends up, right? And so I pitched that idea to them, and they pushed back a little bit, and Scott was like, yeah, I agree, it should be done like that. And they were still pushing back, and finally I get my editor to go, okay, we'll try it. And so I'm drawing all the pages, and the editor goes to me, Greg, we're worried that the fans will think that it was a mistake. So what we really want to do now is we just want to go this way and then right back. And I go, that's stupid. I go, that makes no sense to do that. I go, I will look like an idiot if you do that. And I got really upset, and I was quoting Steve Jobs where he goes, stay foolish, you gotta stay foolish. And I went up the ladder to the highest points, and I go, you gotta stay foolish. And Scott's going, what did he say? And so my editor-in-chief, Bob Harris, who was my editor back at X-Force, coincidentally, he goes, I'm as foolish as they come. Well, let's do it. So we work out the pagination over the phone, and the book turns at this point at that page, yes. And then when it gets to this page, it turns again, yes. And we methodically just making sure there's no mistakes. Okay? So I see Scott start to tweet out that, don't worry, the book's going to do this, but it's not a mistake. And I'm like, what are you doing, you pussy? Take that down. Why did you tweet that stuff about it, B, right? And then he had gotten his copies. Okay, so now I get my copy. And I'm flipping through it, and all of a sudden I go, they messed it up. Because now, like, I'm all of a sudden have to turn pages in the opposite direction. Because when I was doing my page turns with the boards, it never occurred to me that at one point you're going to have to start flipping the pages the opposite of that you normally would. You'd have to start going the other way. And I go, they messed it up. And I was all mad, and I was ready to call editorial and go, you messed it up, you messed it up. And then I go, wait a minute, it has to be that way. I go, that's even better, right? So at first though, it got me. And I go, so if it got me, that's even better. It's going to mess them up, just like it messed me up. And so they wanted to like tell all you guys what was going on. I go, no, don't do it. I go, because it was a nasty surprise for me, because I thought you made a mistake. But I go, it's going to have a jarring effect on the fans, on the readers. And I go, and don't worry. I go, the people who don't get it, the smart kids in the room will explain it to the dumb ones. It'll all be great in the end. And so that was one of the examples of something that we wanted to do that was, a little bit outside the box for them. And we did it, and you guys loved it. And so when they push back on other things, I always just go, issue 5. It's one of the things we do. And actually, Scott thinks that's when we really became a team. He thinks because that was the time, not only creatively had we really united, but also as locking arms against the establishment, if you will, and stood up as creators together as a team as opposed to individual battles. So that's that, yeah. Questions? Yeah.
So I know DC, they have their own requirements on how characters are drawn, and you're dealing with, a fantastic character with Batman. So your style is very different. It's kind of similar along the lines of McFarlane. How did you?
I don't think so, but
How did you bring into your own style into the face of like the corporate atmosphere? Did they ever request you to change the character this way? Or?
No, never. Never. I mean, I could see you saying the work looked similar when I was on Spawn, because with Todd inks, he'll make you look like McFarlane. He's had very heavy inking style. But as far as my approach, I don't worry about like a lot of guys. You look at their style, and it doesn't matter how many years go by, you just go, it's the same style. Where I really could try and I trained myself as a draftsman first, because I knew that I just wanted to be an illustrator. And even though the ultimate goal from the beginning at age 8 years old was to draw comic books, I later on realized through some books I was studying that I needed to train myself to be an illustrator, because this is what I want to do. I want to get paid to draw, because this is what I do, this is who I am, this is my purpose in life. So I go, so you have to be able to do all of it. So I actually started doing illustration and advertising before the comics door opened for me. So I had that same mentality about illustrating that I do when I approach comics. So what I like to say is, I do Spawn, which is very dark and gritty with dark edge. Well, what if they hired me to do My Little Pony? Well, okay, I can't draw it like I did Spawn. And so my style has to bend and change according to the subject matter and the character that I'm giving. It has to have a different feeling, and so therefore, for me, a different look. So I could change my style to fit whatever it is that I have to do. And I've heard other guys at JR go, I'm not that good to do that. And JR, I consider a brilliant master, and I call him a liar when he tells me that, but he insists he only could draw that one way. Maybe he's telling the truth, I don't know. But for me, I just let my gut tell me. So when I took over Batman, I had an idea of how I thought I was going to approach it. But by the time I reached like the 3rd issue, it had already started to evolve and change and become its own thing, because the book tells me what to do and how to draw these characters. The most the company obviously would impose on me was the costume has to be right. So the only thing they gave me was Jim Lee's designs, because Jim Lee had designed all the new 52 characters. And so I was given the turnaround, so this is what the costume is, and that's it. But even that, I changed a little bit, because his looked very metal the way he drew it. He did a lot of sheen marks on it, and I didn't like that. So I kind of I kept some of the lines together, but gave it a little bit of a different vibe. So no, they've never ever been restrictive. I don't think you could even pull that off. I mean, if you had 10 different artists and you'd go all look like that, well, you couldn't tell the artists apart, and everything would kind of look a little strange to me if I were to open up every book and everything would look the same. Just would look odd. I mean, the appeal to me of comics is seeing all the different styles and what different artists will do with the same subject matter. And that's the cool thing about art. And I say it like this. I say, if you took 10 artists and you sat them in the art room and you said, draw this bowl of fruit. Okay, now we're all looking at the same bowl of fruit, but every artist is going to draw that bowl of fruit differently. And my thinking of why that is because all of us as individuals, we experience the same things in life. Okay, so we all look at that bowl of fruit, but we all feel a little bit differently about whatever we look at based on our own world experiences, how we see things. And that's why every artist has a unique voice. And it applies to writing, it applies to music, it applies to all of these creative fields. And so I think that's the magical point. And certainly if I was a publisher, I would never put any kind of restriction on creative teams other than, you don't lose your mind and draw Batman's penis. Somebody did that. I think I'm really about that, right? I don't know. But as long as they don't do anything like that, I wouldn't put really any restrictions on them, because I think that's where you get all the magic. You get crazy artists like Sam Keith coming out with the Max and whatever else. You get that's the beauty of it all. So why would you want to squash the beauty? When Eddie Braganza worked over at DC, I found this artist at a convention that I thought, had some style and panache and looked different than everybody else. And I go, why don't you go talk, because at the time Eddie Braganza was the doorway. And I go, why don't you go, and Eddie Braganza told the guy, oh, we're not looking for, any kind of stylized look. We want kind of this house style. And until they gave Eddie the boot, I made fun of him all the time, because Marvel snapped him up. And I go, what is this stuff? You don't want style? What do you, idiot? What do you mean you don't want style? You just want homogenized bullshit? I go, you're not really thinking so. Anyway, that's my trash Eddie Braganza story. And I made fun of him so much to his face so many times, because you're mean. I go, I'm truthful. So anyway, Marvel got that guy. So anyway, okay, I'll talk forever because I'm a Capullo. Question? Yeah.
I know last year you kind of gave us a small hint, and you were talking a little bit more about you drawing Swamp Thing. Besides the one shot with you
and the covers, and you haven't even seen all the covers because they did like 6.
No, I see a little bit on your Instagram every now and then, but anywhere you can talk about you drawing Swamp Thing?
Well, let me give you a backstory on the Swamp Thing. All right, so I got to draw a Swamp Thing in metal just for like a brief cameo thing, right? And he's real big, and he had all the heroes, and I had so much fun that I get to Dio's ear and I go, I want to draw a Swamp Thing, 6 issues, whatever. But I want to do it. And he goes, well, we'll go out to dinner and we'll talk. And so we go out to dinner, and he starts selling me on doing Wonder Woman instead. He goes, no, I totally give you one. If you want to do Swamp Thing, we'll totally use one. Okay? I'll give you anything you want. But and he gives me the whole sales pitch, and he turns my head away from Swamp Thing onto Wonder Woman, and I go, oh, Wonder Woman, yeah. And he goes, but I don't have a Swamp Thing book, but if you do some covers for me, I'll make a Swamp Thing book for your covers to go on, and you'll do Wonder Woman. I go, okay. And so I turn in my first Swamp Thing cover, and he goes, I need you to do me a Swamp Thing book. So it became, okay, forget Wonder Woman. So at some point, and I don't know why, because things are always fluid in this business, and as I mentioned, there's so many plans. It's where do you go first, and where do you go next? And so I would still love to do a miniseries of Swamp Thing. But I don't know when that would be slotted in, but it'd definitely be something I'd be into doing. I love drawing that character. It's a great character, and I got the support of the publisher, co-publisher. So, and Scott has said he already has a story that's been written for it. So it'd be an easy thing to get going when we find the right window to go through that. Yeah. Yeah, right there.
But first thing, you gotta do My Little Pony at some point. My question actually, you're doing a lot of work with Scott Snyder right now, but when you're choosing a project, what sort of qualities do you look for in the writer? Knowing that this is gonna be a collaborative relationship, what sort of qualities do you look for in that writer before you jump on and say, yeah, I'll do this?
Well, the first part is, I've never chosen the writer. And with Scott and I, we were put together by my former editor, Bob Harris, who's on Explorers, who's now the editor-in-chief. It was his brainstorm to put the two of us together. I didn't know Scott's work, and I guess he knew mine a bit, but I didn't know anything really about him. And that was the same with every part of my career. I mean, when I was at Explorers, I worked with Fabian Nicieza. When I'm on Quasar, I worked with Mark Grunwald. It's just like, here it is. The thing I will tell you, though, about that, and why Scott and I almost broke up before this thing took off the ground, is because I was raised Marvel style, which was based on plot. So a writer would give me maybe 4 to 6 pages that I would illustrate 20 pages of story from. And so they, of course, would have to give you some dialogue for where the emotional high spots are, but the rest was just evocative writing that would allow me to dream up a story around this, skeleton story. And then after you draw that, that would go back to the writer, and the writer then would script after he saw the visuals, okay? And full script style. Okay, so that's how I was trained. And so that's what I learned how to do. I learned about film direction, and I learned how to pace a story and all that, and have clear storytelling. And so that's my skill set. So a writer or gal who's into full script doesn't need me. They just need a drafts person, because my skill set would be getting rusty and dusty on a shelf because you're not allowing me to do what it is which I trained my whole career to be able to do. So you just need a person who doesn't know my skill set, who is just a good illustrator to illustrate exactly what you're telling them. You're the direction, you're giving them all the direction they need, they just have to fill in the squares, right? So Scott came from this full script thing. And my last gig was working with Todd McFarlane, and the way Todd and I worked was even looser than the Marble House style that I described to you. We worked more closely with how I've heard Kirby worked with Stan, which is, Stan would call him into the office, and sometimes he'd get up on the desk and then Thor does this, and act things out. And so most of my time with Todd wasn't receiving a written script. It was phone calls, me taking notes, sometimes setting up a mic recorder and just recording our conversation. And it would be things like, okay, I need 3 pages of Sam and Twitch, and they're gonna be talking about this. I don't care if they're in the office, in the car, under a bridge, as long as it has this tone of this conversation. Give me a little extra room on the 3rd page of that because I got a lot to say. And so I went from that to Snyder. And the first issue, I think, was 24 pages, and it was like over 48 pages came off my printer. I really just couldn't even believe what was happening, And I was like, what is this? And I get this Mondo stack, and that'll give me narcolepsy. I'll go to sleep if I have to read all this. So I type him an email, and I go, Scott, I don't need all this. Just give me the important words. And he writes back, they're all important. And I wrote back, that's not true. Just give me the high spot. And he writes this big long email. My wife's in the back there, so she'll vouch for this story. And so he writes this email, and he's beating his chest, bragging, I won this award, and I'm pretty fucking good. And he's using the F-bomb on me, and he's pounding his chest about all these accolades he's received. And my wife is over my shoulder reading. She goes, who does he think he is? And I go, oh, he doesn't know me, he doesn't have to work with me, he's just nervous, it's his baby and whatever. I go, he'll chill out. And I'm trying to formulate my response, right? And I go, I'm sure your mother's very proud. and here's one of the reasons I love Scott so much. He's so sweet. He didn't even realize I kicked him in the nuts. He writes back, he goes, yes, I come from a very close-knit family, and they're very supportive. And this is why I really need somebody to make me a Scott Snyder plushie doll that I can build already go with. So, and just as I predicted, he initially wanted to quit because of how I wanted nothing, he wanted to give everything. And then he met my wife and I at some convention, I don't remember what city it was, and he comes up to me and he goes, I'm sorry, dude, that guy's really a big a-hole. And I go, yeah, that's true. And we've been just growing to be better and better friends, and now we're just best friends. We're best friends, and our wives love each other and everything like that. Now we're really a family, but it started out rough. So, if I am going to ever pick a writer, it's got to be a guy or girl who understands what my skill set is and give me the room to do that. McFarlane actually grabbed Snyder's ear at one point and said, if you want to get the best I can get out of this way. Because the less you give me, the better I'll perform. And Scott now, because I tell him, let me tell you, I can talk. Okay? So Scott is so neurotic, okay? And like the scripts, and I didn't know because I had a different program. And Scott would include all these pictures with his script that I could never see. All I saw was 4 blue dots. Squares, 4 blue dots all the time. And this went on for years now, because we've been working since 2011. And this went on for years. I only recently changed programs like a year ago and went, oh, these things are pictures. Right? And so you would think that anybody in their reasonable mind would go, what's the point of providing these pictures? He never goes by them anyway. But those blue dots have never disappeared. Every script, he gives me the 4 blue dots. So you go, I go, wow. So the most hilarious one was when we did the Gordon story we call Super Heavy, and Bruce has a beard. This kid actually, instead of spending time with his family, because you're kids, you'd be bouncing around your knee, with kissing the wife, is hunting down on Google a picture picture of a freaking beard. Like, are you kidding me? The wife's probably, I can only imagine Jean going, Scott, dinner's ready. Be right down, honey. You just gotta find a picture of a beard for Greg. So I've been working on all this time. I tell him, Scott, you don't get paid by the word, and let me do the heavy lifting, and I can do all this. Go spend time with your family. Let me do the heavy lifting. So it's finally, now I get the scripts for stuff like metal. I get them, I go, all right. So from pages 7 to 24, this happens. And I just go, Greg, get up. And that's what I want him to do, because I know how to do that. And it allows him to go and be creative or spend time with his family or whatever. So it's been a journey, the two of us. So is there comic wannabe writers in this room? You? Only one? Two? Few. There's a few. Okay, well here's my advice. Is when you're trying to pair up with your illustrator, have a conversation with them, all right? Find out who you're hooking up with, because it has to work. If you like to work for full script, you're best to try and find somebody who prefers to receive one, to draw from, to illustrate. And if you're not flexible, that becomes even more important. With Scott, I said to my wife, I go, it's not fair for me to say you have to change and work the way I'm accustomed to working for all this time, because this is what makes you comfortable. So I go, but it's also not fair that you say I have to change working this way, which I'm comfortable, to accommodate you. So we have to meet in the middle. And so you have to, as a writer, understand who you're pairing with, and if you can't be flexible, then you have to find somebody else, and just put it all on the table of what your expectations are for each other. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And comics about having fun, and nobody's supposed to be miserable doing it. Believe me, the deadlines take care of that end of it for you. Okay, so that's it. The editors and the deadlines will do that all on its own. So, and message boards. Stay off the message boards, because everybody will find something to hate about everything in this world. Okay, next question. Right there.
I'm a big fan of Gotham, which of course just ended recently, and I love how they would always pull stuff from the comics that I never saw in any other adaptation. So when I realized they were doing Court of Owls, I got really excited. So I just wondered what your response was to seeing something you helped create get adapted to another medium.
Well, the first thing I think is I asked my wife, have they sent me any money? So, did I get a check for that, honey? Did they send me any money? Because, it's my stuff. Did they send me any money? And, because, I got bills, baby. But anyway, here's what I'm going to tell you. All right, and I'm just going to tell you some other question that I get asked a lot before I answer that one. Is like, people ask me, what's the favorite comic character I've worked on so far? What's my favorite thing I've done? And here's what I'll tell you. I've wanted to draw comics since I was 8 years old. 8 years old is when I knew this is what I wanted to do. So to me, I'm living the purpose I was born to do. I was born to do this, and this is what I do. And I don't want to do anything else, even though sometimes I'll bitch the deadline pressure's killing me, grinding me down. If you give me an opportunity to do something else, I wouldn't want to do it. I'd want to do what I do. So that said, the thing that you just mentioned, I never imagined that as an 8-year-old kid wanting to draw comics. I never imagined talking in a room of people who were willing to listen instead of telling me to shut up, right? I never imagined them making toys. I never imagined signing autographs. People want to take a selfie. I never imagined any of that. So all this stuff, like them showing up on a TV show, I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing. And the only thing that doesn't just maybe stop in the tracks with wide eyes, is because I'm so busy all the time, working. I think it'll all hit me at the end when I can slow down and look back in the rearview mirror. Because when you're in it, like somebody told me, Todd, I was with McFarlane the other day, and he told me that somebody did the math and figured out that we worked on Spawn together for 18 years. And I go, 18 years? I thought I was like 19 years old. I'm 18 years, I've been working with Todd. It's like the time when you're doing this, because it's like an assembly line, you don't get much chance to look up, right? And so I think down the road I'll look up and I'll go, wow, they did that, and I did that, and it'll be even more mind-blowing. But it's flattering, it's way beyond anything I expected, and it's all obviously great joy. It's like finding all these hidden Christmas presents under the tree that you only thought you were going to get one that Christmas, and all of a sudden you go, no, and you got the stocking over there. oh, wow. And they go, oh, and the BB gun's hidden behind the dresser over there. And they roll all over the floor. You know, so it's kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So speaking on that topic you just mentioned, looking back on the characters that you've drawn, the Batman Elapse is actually, I consider, it's one of those iconic milestones that history. Like that's something that as soon as I saw that, that was it. And I want to know what was your inspiration for that, because it's so fitting. It's something. It's like it's along the lines with Batman. It's along the lines with Joker. It's just what it is so perfect. So how did you come up with that?
Well, first off, it's so. Another flattering thing is when you see a cosplayer come up to you and they're dressed in something that you created. That's just like, pow. And with that character happened like that. Same happened with the Talon and Court of Owls too. That happened really, really quickly. And that is just like, pow, wow, it's so flattering. It all starts the same. And that Scott gives me a script that has some descriptions of what he's thinking. Like for the Batman of Laughs, and maybe we don't see his eyes. And of course, I had to have bat ears to make it that, and maybe his smile's wider. And so he gives me these little seeds, right? And they just go into the soil, put some water on it, and this is like the best part of what I do. When you're a kid and you're drawing, you don't have deadlines, you don't have expectations on you. You are free. You sit there with your paper and your crayons or your pencil, and your imagination's taking over, and that's the joy of it, because there's no expectation if it has to be this thing or it has to be that thing, and people need to like this, and all that is not there. And when I get to create this stuff, that's the closest I get to that. And I never at once, at any point, think this will be the thing that the people will go crazy over. Because you don't think you can predict that. And I tell Scott all the time, because Scott has anxiety. Anytime there's any storyline, I'll show you my text messages. They're long in the scripts. Because he's so nervous about whether it's any good and the fans gonna like it. And I go, you can't predict what the fans are gonna like. It's an impossible thing to project. I said, so the only thing you can do is do your best and care about what it is that you're doing. And what happens is gonna happen. And so I'm just happy that fans took to those characters, and that character in particular, so strongly, because it's nothing you can predict. I just drew something that I thought looked cool, that went along with some of his descriptive, and bam, and there it is. So now it's just, man, part of it's luck and just hitting the chord. You don't know where that chord is or how to find it. If you did, everybody would be filthy rich. We'd all be in this room. You just know what thing to hit society with, and you're gonna make it overnight, right? We only had that crystal ball, right? We'd all not be here. We'd be on our island going, hey. So, yeah.
I read some of the release interactions in the Court of Owls between you and Snyder, and that was going along the lines of what we spoke about before, how he would think, dude, I hadn't seen anything with that involvement before. Okay, when here I want you to look out at the skyline, and I want this and that and this in the background, and I just hadn't seen that.
Yeah, me neither.
Do you think, are all of his collaborations like that? And I know that you got him to back off. Most artists, they kind of do what you do, right? In the Marvel kind of thing.
I wouldn't say that most do. And Scott has learned to give different writers what they prefer now. I taught him that he can lay back sometimes, and he learned that there's joy in that. But like Jock prefers more descriptive, like you just mentioned, which is why I said writers have to know who they're pairing up with. And I've met other writers and talked with them. And when I talk about, I want all this freedom to do this, you see terror in their eyes. And they go, oh, I couldn't do it. I want the writer to tell me everything, where to put the camera, how many panels. They want that.
Really, there's that many things? Because I thought there'd be more.
I don't know what the numbers are. My wife is a false statistician. She just walked out of the room while her eyes had asked her. She'll make numbers about it. I think most people. And your study and data on this is, she has none ever. But she always will tell you, I think the most is this. I don't know what percentages of what go to which camp. All I know is there is definitely two camps. And I've met some guys who just go, I couldn't do it, don't want it that way. And then there's some people like me who just go, no, that's what I need, and that's how I thrive. So it's really an individual thing. And so Scott gives me what he knows I need, which is a lot less. But here's the interesting thing that I learned from Scott is he needs to write that way in order for him to do his job. So he actually retrofits everything for me. He goes, I write the full script like I used to, and then I remove all these hunks before I print it, before I send it to you, so that you never see it. Because I told him, I said, when you give me these things, you know, that I tell you I don't need, what that does is it's like putting a stick in my spokes. Because I'm riding, and then you go, and now I can't unsee this thing that you implanted. And that changes my whole flow, which it cripples me. Because when I get any script from any writer, a movie plays in my head. And so I don't want anything that sticks something else in that way of my camera.
But he still gets to go through his process.
Yeah, exactly, without hindering mine. And for the guys who prefer more, he just leaves those chunks in. And I guess Jock does prefer that. And so it's a real individual thing. So I like to be free and just get the vibe and let the cameras roll. And then when I see these, I'll read a script like a few times through, and I'll watch the movie a few times, and sometimes the scene might change, because I'll feel a little differently about it. And then from there, I go, okay, here's the shots, because obviously I can't do it. I have limited space. So I pick my favorite shots, what I think really tell the story the best. And then from there, I gotta go, what will work on paper? And so then I do more edits, and sometimes I have to substitute. Scott wrote some great scene in one of the Court of Owls, and then that end, you know, he runs all around the room and against the wall, and he takes them out as he's fighting. I'm going, great in the movie, not going to work on paper. So I totally just rewrite that scene to something that takes out all the bad guys, but that will work on paper. So there's also that. You have to know what works in the format that you're working on. Yeah, go ahead.
How has the technology of the way that you draw, how has that changed from paper and crayons versus today's technology?
I'm still old school. I don't use crayons. But I use artist pencils and crystal board now. But no, I still prefer pencil to paper and actual ink. The only thing, I've done some digital painting, which I like, because I don't have the turpentine and all that mess. So I do like to paint digitally when I get the time, and occasionally if I'm inking myself and there's a really tight deadline, I've inked some stuff digitally, but don't prefer it. I don't like the look of it. I can tell digital work when I look at it, and it doesn't look organic, and to me it looks cold compared to the real world old school approach. So yeah, I'm still old school, you know, I still, my drawers are just stuffed, my flat files are stuffed with original art, and that's what the downside for technology that these young guys are missing is, I tell them, I go, you know, right now you're a young person, right, you're making money and it's all great. I go, but what happens now, you know, down the road and you're not getting as much work and you need to generate some cash, you don't have any original art to sell, right? Because it's all a digital file, no one's buying that. No one's buying your ones and zeros, right? So you go, you better at least start doing the covers in the real world. Otherwise, I don't know how you're gonna take care of your family down the road, right? Because this doesn't last forever. We're like athletes, right? We got a short shelf life. I'm very lucky that I got a second wind of this career that was back in the 90s, and then all of a sudden I hit another crest. That doesn't happen too often. So, you know, I'm lucky, and again, thank you guys. But yeah, you have to prepare for your future, because I mean, we're walking a tightrope. We got to do our own health insurance. We got to do our own retirement, all of it. So you got to think about it. The future can't be just living by today. Otherwise, you know, you're gonna be, you know, getting your bean can and go, yeah, go ahead, yeah, sure.
So one of the things I look at your work, and a lot of artists' work, and it's going to change over time.
Oh,
there are lots of themes that stay the same in a lot of your art, but it has changed over time. You're looking for something that's different from the 90s to today, right? It's a huge different take in the way it's drawn. That crest, I think, is with change, right? I'd love to see My Little Pony with your take. Pay money for that.
Now, here's the thing about that, right? Because some artists, as I mentioned earlier, it looks the exact same way it did to me 20, 30 years ago. It's their style, and they've locked in. And I go, I don't even understand that, because as I experience life, it changes my view on it. And, you know, so I see things differently. I look back at my Spawn stuff, and some of the stuff, I go, wow, that was really good. And because it's so much distance, it's like looking and critiquing at a completely different artist. because my mind isn't even in that mindset. I go, how did I go, what was my thought process to get from that point to that point? So I think any creative person, it's like a musical artist writing the same album over and over again. True, it worked for AC/DC, but they're the exception to the rule, okay? If you're not growing and changing, well, then you're stagnant. To me, that's just death. So I'm happy when somebody tells me, your artwork looks different, and your artwork's always evolving, you're always changing, because yeah, I'm always striving, and I'm always trying to do better or see differently and have a different approach. So you'll always see me at my core, because I am that artist, and that's how I see that fruit bowl. But hopefully you see the evolution of my observations of the world that enter into the art. And so I'm hoping that it'll always be a little bit different as we go until the day I can't do it anymore. Yeah.
So, talking about doing covers in real life, how does your process, if at all, change between doing the scripted work for the story inside versus like an art piece for a cover like the Detective Composite cover?
Okay, well, first off, my philosophy on covers has changed a lot from the 90s. There's some covers that you brought to me from the 90s that I go, Christ, where am I going to sign this thing? Right, because it's just covered. It's just covered. And two things also, because you mentioned script. Traditionally, it's been that the cover represents something that happened in the storyline. When I worked for Todd, he didn't care about that at all, and his philosophy is equally valid. They'll say nobody is reading the story from the cover when they see it. They're seeing the character that they like, and as long as it's a cool image of that character, they're going to want, okay, gotcha, 10? All right. So they're going to come and they're going to gravitate toward that cover. And so he thought it's irrelevant to care that it matters. But, so there's those two schools of thought. But as far as my approach to covers has changed dramatically. I try to make the most simplistic, easy to read image that I could possibly come up with from a distance. Because those busy covers, you can go, wow, look at all that detail, look at all that, blah, blah, blah. But that gets lost in an ocean of covers, and it's not memorable. Because our minds just aren't capable of retaining all of that. Our minds are much more easily adapted to retaining a simplistic image. And so I try now to get a very simplistic, iconic image on that cover. And so, like Scott, every once in a while will suggest an idea, and it's too elaborate. But I get inspired from that, and I go, instead I'll do this very simplistic thing. An example was the cover where Joker is dancing in the rain with a tattered Batman costume. You go, maybe we could have all the shattered tubes in the Batcave with costumes, and there's blood, and I'm going, no, I'm going to take that. Now, okay, so I just told you what was in his head and how I distilled it. We're just going to take the one tattered costume, right? And I just go, I'm thinking, singing in the rain, and I go, that'd be a cool, creepy image. Joker dancing around with it. And that's how I turned that idea into that. So I just try to make simplistic, easy to read, postage stamp. If it was postage stamp size, you can still see the shape and read it and think it's cool. I think you'll remember those covers longer than you will, some other crazy cover.
So,
yeah.
What do you do for artist block? When you run out of ideas to draw, or how do you get more ideas?
Well, here's the thing. Deadlines don't give a shit about inspiration. Okay? That's the thing. And so, what you do in those spots, because you got to keep moving. And I'm really rock-headed. I'm Aries the Ram. My wife yells at me all the time, get up and walk away. And I'm like, no, I'm not done banging my head yet. And she goes, you'll do better if you just go off and do something else and then come back. And no, my head's not bloody enough yet. And I'll just stay there like a retard. Sorry, I'm just dumb like that. I am thick-headed. Grandma also called me got lost, rockhead, and a rock. And it's true. And I stay there and I grit it out like a jerk. And the thing, though, is you may not be inspired, but you know enough about illustration and storytelling to where when you really get stuck, you can mechanically work it out. You go, well, this is what I have to do to push this forward. Now, it might not be the most thrilling thing you've ever done, the most inspired thing you've ever done, but it works because technically it works. So technically the moves. I try to avoid those, and I hope that I'm doing something that has some life to it. But in those days we just can't. I go like that. But I'm such a jerk. Right? I'll draw. And I'll work 12 hours is regular day for me. 12 hours, 7 days a week. And so I'll draw a full splash, and I did one for metal where, remember all the Justice League were in the gladiator ring and they formed a giant bot? Okay, I had the big splash bot already drawn, and I still have it already drawn, you've never seen it. Because when I got done with it, I hated it, and I go, don't like it. And my wife goes, you're crazy, it's great. And I showed it to Scott. Scott's like, dude, that's totally cool. I go, it's crap. I redid it, wife goes, oh yeah, that is better. And Scott goes, I can't believe it. I thought it was great and you made it greater. And I'm going, and that's what kind of a maniac I am. It's like, I don't care, so these guys go, I gotta make my deadline. I go, just put in more hours. Now you put in 16 hours a day, 7 days a week to make it up. And so, yeah, I'm passionate, but when I do get that block, I grunt through. So, yeah.
If you are able to return to Reborn, are you going to approach that project differently so that the adaptation doesn't affect your original vision? Or
Well, I'll follow, my style won't change because it's still the environment that I created and the characters, most of the characters will probably remain the same, other than the introduction of new characters. So I don't think that my look on that book will change at all. There, especially because I created that environment, I created those characters. And so that is how I feel about them. And so when I revisit it, I'm sure that it'll look seamless, which is another good reason not to have another artist come in, because me as a fan, I never liked it. And it's one of the reasons I try and stay consistent all the time and never have a fill-in artist, because as a fan, I hated that. I have my favorite artists, and I would go religiously to the comic shop and get my comics. And that issue where he'd be on the cover and I'd flip it open and, it was not him. It was like a gut punch. And so I like that consistency, so I assume most people do too. And so, yeah, it'll be seamless so that if they put in a trade, there's no speed bump. That's the worst thing, those speed bumps. So, yep.
Is it difficult to transition when you've been engaged with drawing one character for a period of time and now you're drawing a different character?
A lot of people, I think, do that more easily than I do. For me, I like to be on for at least 3 issues before I really are getting the feel of it. Because, and I say this, and people may, that go with it. I mean, the characters tell me how they want me to draw them. And so I can have the best intentions, but it's not until they speak their voice to me and go, this is how I sit, these are the hand gestures I use. I tilt my head this way, not that way. That's when I get the joy of drawing the comics, and that's when I get into it. So, yeah, I like to be on there. So in the beginning, it's a little uncomfortable, a little rocky. The exception might have been the things that I just created out of scratch myself, like the Creech and Reborn, because there I was going from the get-go with me, nothing that's been established by anybody else. And my head wasn't filled with imagery that I'd seen and stories that I've read. So, yeah.
Like Swamp Thing, what are some dream books that you've been involved for, and then what are your least favorite?
Well, least favorite, I would just say any team book, because team book, people go, Greg, why? I go, did you fail math? I go, and it's like, because there's one character as opposed to like a team of 8 characters with different costumes and different personalities. That's so much more time consuming. So let's put it this way, right? You make your money. You get your pay rate, but the money really is royalties. That So if you get a top selling book, it's a single character, and you get another book that's a top selling book, so you get the same royalties. And one is drawing one character, and one is 8 characters. Unless you're a masochist, I'm going for the one character every time now. Of course, then I'm older though. I was on a team book. I did X-Force, but that's a young man's game, man, because it's ferocious. So the least favorite would be team books, but and nobody from DC's here, so I'll say this because they said, I love you, DC, and you pay my checks, and I love you. But I grew up as a Marvel guy, and so pretty much that was my childhood. I had the staples from DC, obviously Batman, and I had some Green Arrow and JLA and Supermans, but I was mostly a Marvel guy through and through. So if you put a blindfold on me and gave me a dart and line up all the Marvel characters, I pretty much should be happy with any of those because I grew up on that and I'm so familiar with them. I'm much less familiar with the DCU. And drawing metal was an eye-opening experience because I go, wow, all these characters I never even heard of. And but right now, the easier play for me would be Marvel because it's just familiar territory. Okay. Any other? Let me see if there's another because you got. I only have a couple minutes. That's it. No more questions. Okay. Got it. All right. Listen. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys.